NeonicVoid Productions presents.
Hi.
I was just
Hi. Just hello.
Oh, so we're doing that now.
Gross.
It's my magical talent.
Mm-mm.
Hi, welcome to Book Watchers. I'm speaking
Hi,
very
hello, how are you?
I'm speaking very quietly. Lovely, lovely boyfriend is working. He's on the phone in a meeting, and I don't want to disturb him too much. So hi, I'm Devin. What's good? What's popping?
And I'm Jacob.
Fired.
And I don't have to worry about talking low because nobody in my house works from home. And no, my cousin's still here, but I don't give a fuck.
Oh, work.
He ain't doing shit.
So of course, today,
And
before we begin, in the description below, there'll be the link tree to all the special little goodies, the YouTube channel, the other links to the other podcasts, and the NeonicVoid family, as well as go follow us on TikTok and Twitter. Well, follow me on Twitter. I have not gotten around to making the Twitter for the Book Watchers yet. I need to. I should get on that. What am I doing? But
you got a lot on your plate, sis.
I do.
You got a lot on your plate.
And I'm just now getting my mental health taken care of. So now I can start kind of rambling up my working on this stuff again, because I've gotten kind of late. But stuff's happening. So anyway, yeah, link in description below and shit. So today we're gonna what go on.
Let's rewind a bit because in case you guys don't know what you just walked into, this is Book Watchers.
Yeah.
And of course, we'll be taking you on a journey, like always. Come hallucinate with us as we read.
More like dissociate.
Tattoos. Dissociate, hallucinate while we read the tattoos of dead trees.
Oh, got it. Big brain.
Yeah,
big brain. Big brain.
Yeah, took you a second there. Yeah.
The little hamster got confused. Rhino got confused in the little hamster wheel. He's like,
when you edit this, you should definitely put one of those like loading signs all over your forehead, just like. Yeah,
I have a close up. Just that.
Yep, just do that. Anyway, so today, my goofy goobers, we are going to be reviewing the next book in the Wheel of Time series. We're now on book 4 of 14. And book 4 of the Wheel of Time is called The Shadow Rising. Cue cover of The Shadow Rising popping up somewhere on the screen.
Yeah, it'll be there.
It'll be there. So this book is very interesting. I kind of see this as like I like to think of this book as the beginning of the actual story, because book 1 through 3 was more of a build up to our characters coming into who they are, realizing who they are, especially Rand, because from this point forward, Rand has no doubts in his mind, no second thoughts or second guesses. He now fully accepts that he is the Dragon Reborn, and he is fully committed into fulfilling the prophecies of the Dragon Reborn and uniting the people of the world in the fight against the Dark One.
Work Queen.
So, from this book forward, we're going to be seeing Rand becoming more political. He's going to be taking a more active role in organizing his militaries, bringing the other nations of the Westlands and even the Aiel Wastes under his control. And believe it or not, bringing the Aiel Wastes, like the olive clans of the Aiel, under his control was the easy part, because the Aiel have their own prophecies of the Dragon Reborn. They call the Dragon Reborn the Karakorn, which means they're chief of chiefs. So the Aiel, their society is clan based. They're tribalistic, so they have clan chiefs and set leaders and societies. All these different. Their society is very convoluted and complex, and it's actually very sophisticated. Even though people of the Westlands refer to the Aiel as savages most times, but we are actually going to be spending a lot of our time through. They're going to be spending a lot of their time throughout the Shadow Rising in the Aiel Wastes, because that's the very first thing Rand decides to do is to bring the Aiel under his control, because the Aiel are the best warriors out there, and with them behind him, he's able everything else, handling the other nations, bringing other nations under his control, whether by conquering them or by just simply bringing them under his control through negotiation, or by overthrowing whatever Forsaken has taken over that city. The Aiel would be his primary what do they call it? Like their military terms, it's like the
Primary goal?
no the when a certain group, like when a certain military group is used, like the frontliners or something, like they're the ones that are sent in first. They're like the ones used on the front lines most of the time. So the Aiel will come to make up the bulk of his military, and they'll be the ones that he relies on the most when it comes to handling Shadow Friends, fighting the Dark One's forces, and overthrowing the Forsaken. So, without further ado, let's get started. So this story actually, like many of the other books, it does split off into multiple storylines, following different characters. So the story takes place a couple weeks. Rewind. The story takes place not long after the events of Book 3.
Mm-hmm.
So Rand is now has now proclaimed himself as the Dragon Reborn. He currently controls the High Lords of Tyr, and as such, he also controls the Stone of Tyr, which is this massive fortress that was built by the Aes Sedai in the Age of Legends during the Break of the World. It is often referred to as the Stone of Tyr, and the Stone of Tyr is famous because no single army has ever been able to take it. They've never been able to bring the fortress down, or basically overtake it and capture the Stone of Tyr. So whenever the Tyrants are being invaded, and their invasion forces managed to push themselves to the fortress, the Tyrants were always able to fortify themselves within the fortress, and from there eventually push the invasion force out. But then the Aiel come in while looking for Rand as their Karakorn, and they manage to overtake it, but not by just breaking down the front doors. They actually manage to sneak in, and they overpower the soldiers in the fortress. And from there, and this all happens right when Rand takes up the crystal sword Kalandor. Kalandor is a Sa'angreal, which is a more powerful version of an Angreal. With it, Rand is able to channel more power from the source, far beyond what he is naturally able to channel. And since it's a sword, it also functions as a weapon as well. And Kalandor is one of the most powerful Sa'angreals ever created in the Age of Legends. There are two other Sa'angreals that actually surpass the power of Kalandor, which do actually get mentioned in this book. And Rand has already seen one of the other Sa'angreals. It's actually right outside, buried right outside of Cairhien.
Mm-hmm.
These other two Sa'angreals are what they're called. Hang on, I have them in my notes here. So the other two Sa'angreal that are more powerful than Kalandor, they're called the Choden Call. Now, the Choden Call are a pair of massive, colossal statues composed entirely of Quendiar.
Ooh.
And because of how big these statues are, the ancient Aes Sedai also created a smaller pair of Terangrials. Now, if you carry the smaller pair, if you carry the matching little statue of the Choden Call, that Terangrial links you to the bigger one, allowing you to draw an obscene amount of power from the true source. So much power that it is believed that you could actually challenge the creator himself by using the Choden Call. And there are two of them, one for each gender. So, like with Angriel and Sa'angriel, there are some that will specifically work for either a man or a woman.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a female Angriel, Sa'angriel, then only a woman can only use it to channel more power, and it's the same with men. So the reason why I mention this is because they actually, while the big ass statues themselves are not seen in this book, they're little keys, as they're called, will actually come into play later on. I'm sorry, they're called access keys.
Access keys, got it.
Rand has to deal with the politics of Tyr. The Tyrant Lords all are trying to suck up to him since they witnessed him taking Kalandor from its resting place. They can't deny that he is the Dragon Reborn. So many of them are trying to vie for continued use of their power to make sure that they can keep their place within the fortress and keep their power. Now, for the most part, Rand lets them continue on as they are, but he sets clear rules that also limit their power, because the Tyrant Lords are basically the best way I can describe them. The power that the Tyrant Lords possess is pretty much similar to the power that the old kings of England used to have. So before the Magna Carta, kings used to be able to just say off with your head and without any kind of trial or like other laws that protected individuals after the fact. After the Magna Carta was signed, king could just basically do whatever they wanted, and that's pretty much what the Tyrant Lords were like. So Rand put new laws in place that not only held the Tyrant Lords accountable for their actions, but limited their power so they can no longer just do whatever they wanted. Rand has to navigate those difficulties, and he begins studying with almost a near obsession more of the prophecies of the dragons, just to figure out, okay, what is the direction he needs to go now? Like, what else should he be doing? And one of the prophecies that he learns of is a prophecy that not only concerns Kalandor, but it also concerns the Aiel. Or rather, it hints that it involves the Aiel. So in the prophecy that he was following from the last book that concerned Kalandor, him taking up Kalandor, also concerned a people that would take over the Stone of Tyr, and they called themselves the People of the Dragon. And when he mentions this, one of the Aiel chiefs that took the stone, that participated in the battle, he tells Rand that that's what the Aiel call themselves in private, the People of the Dragon. So Rand now further understands that the next part of his journey involves the Aiel, and the Aiel tell him more about their own prophecies of the Karakorn. The Karakorn is meant to unite all of the Aiel clans together, and in the end destroy them. Which Rand is not sure what that's supposed to mean. Clearly, they are looking for him, but at the same time, he's meant to destroy them. Like, they're looking for him, and he's meant to unite them, but yet at the same time destroy them.
Yeah.
He's not sure what this means exactly just yet, but he decides that his next course of action is to head to the Aiel Waste, also known by the Aiel as the Threefold Land. Before he leaves, several things happen in the Stone of Tyr. First and foremost, Rand, Perrin, and Matt experience these kind of gruesome events called bubbles of evil. So now that the seals containing the Dark One's prison are beginning to weaken and break, the Dark One the Dark One's evil is slowly seeping out of his prison, and is causing what Moraine calls bubbles of evil to appear. In Perrin's case, his axe that he has been carrying since he left the Two Rivers suddenly comes to life and begins flying around and tries to chop off his head. And Perrin barely survives by grabbing it and lodging it into the wall, hold it in place. Matt, while playing a game of cards, is horrified to see the little figures on his cards come to life and attack him. In Rand's case, in his room, the mirrors on his wall, his reflection in his mirrors come to life, and literally step out of the mirrors and attack him, and he barely survives destroying them. Not long after this, Rand is approached by Lanfear. Now, at first, Rand still thinks that she's going by the name of Selene, but she reveals to him that, nope, I am Lanfear of the Chosen. Because among the Forsaken, they don't call... Yeah, among the Forsaken, they don't call themselves the Forsaken. They refer to themselves as the Chosen because they were chosen by the Great Lord, as they call the Dark One. But Lanfear reveals to him who she really is, and she tells him that, just pretty much point blank, that she wants him to join her cause, because it hints that Lanfear, despite serving the Dark Lord, she has her own motivations and her own ambition. And while she may be playing at cooperating with the other Forsaken, she's really manipulating them and working against them in her own way. So she has her own ambitions and her own goals. And she wants to convince Rand to join her. Mainly because she still sees Rand as Luz Theron Telamon, his previous life, because Lanfear used to be the dragon's lover. But in his past life, Luz Theron eventually broke things off with Lanfear, who at the time her name was Mirren. He broke things off with her because he realized that Lanfear wasn't really with him because she loved him, even though she proclaims that she does love him. It was really more she really was more attracted to the power that he wielded, because he was the most powerful channeler of his age, and also he held a lot of societal influence. So it was really more the relationship. She was more attracted to the power and status that she got from just being associated with him. But Luz Theron eventually broke things off with Lanfear and married his wife, a woman named Ileana, who he unfortunately killed when he went mad at the end during the breaking of the world. So Lanfear's goal is to try to get back with her ex,
Of course.
who died and is now reincarnated.
Because she's obsessed.
And while they're having their little conversation, Rand and the Stone, the fortress is attacked by a large force of Trollocs and Fades, who were sent by one of the other Forsaken, the Forsaken Samael. Now, Samael has been described as He's a very jealous Forsaken. So he was even back during the Age of Legends, Samael was known to be very jealous of the dragon, and often tries to set himself up against the dragon to prove that he was somehow the better, when he really wasn't. Luz Theron whooped his ass several times. But the Trolloc forces were opposed not only by the defenders of the fortress, but also by another group of Trollocs and Myrddraal, sent by yet another of the Forsaken, a very powerful female channeler named Semiraj. Semiraj is often compared to Lanfear, not only because she has the same level of just raw strength, but because she's often looped in. Semiraj is often looped in with Lanfear because, in terms of appearance and overall, just ruthlessness, the only one of the Forsaken that can match Lanfear is Semiraj. If you look up pictures of Lanfear, or if you read the book, Lanfear is described as being an incredibly beautiful woman. She has really dark hair and long dark hair and dark eyes, and she's always seen wearing a white dress. She has a silver chain belt, and her hair is veiled by by like a chain veil with these silver moon and star ornaments. Semiraj is often uh, is described as a very dark woman, like dark skinned, dark wavy hair, and she's always wearing black. And some of the other Forsaken often say Semiraj is, she does this just to match Lanfear, where Lanfear always wears white, Semiraj is always wearing black, but no one has the balls to say that's Semiraj's face. But I digress. Semiraj won't actually be seen until a couple books down the line. But the both attacking both forces of Trollocs are pushed back by the defenders, and Rand, using Kalandor, creates a lightning storm that kills all of the Trollocs and Fades. From that point, after this attack, Rand decides that he must travel to the Aiel Waste and be acknowledged as the Aiel's prophesized leader. Before leaving, though, Rand learns that inside the Stone of Tyr there is a large collection of artifacts called ter'angreal. I've explained before, ter'angreal are, unlike the other two magical artifacts I've mentioned, the Angreal and sa'angreal, Angreal allows a channeler to channel more of the source than they're naturally able to, so it's like a magnifier. A ter'angreal is not... it's different because, for one thing, it uses the power of the source to perform a specific task. So some ter'angreal allow you to enter the dream world. Some can either be used to heal you. Some can be used to shield you from the source. So if, let's say, you want to protect yourself from a channeler, there are ter'angreal that keep channelers from using their weaves on you. So ter'angreal come in many different shapes and sizes, and they have many different purposes. The White Tower currently has the largest collection of ter'angreal, Angreal, and sa'angreal anywhere. The Stone of Tyr has the second largest collection, and inside their vaults, Moraine, the Aes Sedai Moraine, she discovers that there is a twisted redstone archway, and this archway is a unique ter'angreal because when you walk through it, it takes you to another dimension, and inside this dimension there is a mysterious race of snake-like people called the Aelfin. The Aelfin, they're people. They look like normal people, but they have very snake-like features. So think something like Voldemort, flat, noseless face with little slits where the nose should be, snake-like eyes, and maybe like a scale-like pattern on their skin. Moraine tells Rand and Matt that this ter'angreal allows you to ask 3 questions, and the beings on the other side of the archway will answer them. So it could be questions to almost anything, and they will answer it truthfully. So, but there are drawbacks to this. For one thing, you can't ask these creatures frivolous questions. So, frivolous being like, put it in modern terms, who's going to win the Super Bowl next year? Like, that's not a real question. That's very frivolous and unimportant.
Yeah.
Now, of course, sometimes frivolous question can be important, but it just depends on the person who's asking. So you have to be very careful, and you also need to avoid asking questions concerning the Dark One and basically the Dark in general, because the answer could either drive you mad or just kill you outright. So all three of them, Rand, Matt, and Moraine, secretly enter the archway. They all enter at the same time, but they don't see each other entering. They sneak into the vault to enter it. We don't know what Moraine asks the Aelfin when she goes through, and we don't really know what Rand asks either, but we do know what Matt ends up asking the Aelfin. So when Matt goes in, the thing is that when Matt was told of the Terangrial, he didn't really listen to Moraine when she said, don't ask frivolous questions, don't ask about the dark, and most importantly, you are only able to enter the archway once in your lifetime. So once you enter the archway, ask your questions, and leave, you will never be able to enter the archway again. So it's not like you can just go in, ask 3 questions, leave, come back a few days later and ask more questions.
Yeah.
Nope. It's like a genie. It's like a genie in a bottle. 3. Uno, dos, tres. Alright. That's it. So when Matt goes in, his very first question is, should I go home to help my people? Because at this point, our heroes learn that the Two Rivers is in danger. It's been invaded by hordes of Trollocs, and it's currently being occupied by the Children of the Light. So Matt, who has been looking for a very good excuse to get away from all of this, get away from Rand, from Moraine, just fuck off into nowhere. He goes in to try to figure out what's his best course of action, because even though every fiber of his being is telling him to just get the hell out of Dodge, being a being a Taverin, an individual whose very existence changes the pattern and the course of events of his life and those around him, Matt is caught up in a more powerful Taverin that is Rand. So even though Matt changes the course of his life and the lives of those around him by affecting the pattern, Rand does the same thing but on a much grander scale. So Matt, being a much weaker Taverin, is constantly being caught up in this ever-changing and twisting pattern that Rand creates around him. So he wants a way out. But when he asks his first question, should I go home to help my people? The Aelfin give him this answer. You must go to Ruidian. And Matt, getting frustrated and confused because Ruidian is a city in the Threefold Land, in the Aiel Wastes. He immediately jumps the gun and asks them his second question, why would I do it? Go to Ruidian. The Elfin answer, if you don't go to Ruidian, you will die. And becoming more frustrated, he blurts out, why will I die if I go to Ruidian? And their answer is, because you would have avoided the threat of fate. You would leave the butt that you have marked adrift from the winds of time, and you would be killed by those who do not want that destiny to be fulfilled. So Matt is incredibly frustrated, and he starts asking them like a dozen more questions, but the idiot stupidly used up all of his questions.
Mhm.
And the thing is, as he's like going off on these guys, he notices that the world, the dimension he's in, is beginning to become destabilized, and the Alfheim send his ass packing and basically banish him from this realm. When he comes out of it, he's back in the stone. He's back in the vault where the archway is kept. He tries to go back through it, but he can't go back through it anymore because he's used up his 3 questions. But at that moment, both Ran and Moraine come out of the archway, and Ran, seeing them both, he realizes, oh, that's why, because he started experiencing the same deterioration of that dimension. So it was becoming destabilized because 2 Tavaren had entered it at the same time. Before Matt got kicked out of the archway, though, the Elfin actually answer a 4th question. And whether or not this is because of the effects that 2 Tavaren are having on the archway, it's not really certain, but they do answer a 4th question. While he's on his tirade, he asks them, what fate are you talking about? And they tell him this: marry the daughter of the 9 moons, to die and be reborn and to live again a part of what was. Give up half of the light of the world to save the world. And that's when they kick him out.
Ooh.
So he has more questions than answers, but now Matt knows that he must go with Ran to the Threefold Land. So Rand, Matt, Moraine, as well as Egwene Elvire and one of the Aiel women, Avienda, all make their decision to go back to travel to the Aiel Waste. Egwene decides to go to the Aiel Waste because in her travels from the events of the Dragon Reborn and now into the Shadow Rising, Egwene finally figures out how to dreamwalk without the use of that twisted stone ring.
Mhm.
So, as I said in the last episode, Egwene was given a Terangrial stone ring by the Aes Sedai Varen. This stone ring allows her to enter the dream world when she goes to sleep. And this was to help her to discover and focus her dreamwalking abilities. And now, by this point, she's able to enter the dream world at will, but she still doesn't really know much about her power. And while she was traveling the dream world will often respond to your wishes and desires. So if you have a very intense need for something, the dream world will show you how to find it or where to go. It may not give you the answer outright, but it'll point you in the right direction. And the way it did this was by as Egwene was searching the dream world, she gets thrown into a part of the dream world that reflects the Aiel Waste. And what she sees there is an Aiel woman by the name of Amos.
Mhm.
Now, Amos is a wise one. The wise ones are kind of like the Aiel version of the Aes Sedai.
Mhm.
But unlike the Aes Sedai, you don't specifically need to be able to channel to become a wise one.
Mhm.
As it turns out, the Aiel wise ones have more abilities than just channeling. For example, dreamwalking. So which Egwene will come to learn that there are dozens of dreamwalkers living among the Aiel wise ones.
Yeah.
Who are wise ones. And this is shocking because the White Tower itself has not seen a dreamwalker in over 300 years. But that's because the Aes Sedai foolishly believe that dreamwalking is specifically an ability related to the One Power, but it's not. It's an ability that does not come from the One Power itself.
Mhm.
Egwene, in her journeys through the dream world, encounters an Aiel wise one named Amos. And Amos realizes that Egwene is a dreamwalker and tells her she must come to the Aiel Waste so that way she can be properly trained in how to use her power. While at the same time, Avienda learns that she is to be summoned to the Aiel Waste as well, so that way she can also become a wise one. Because as it turns out, Avienda is a channeler.
Mhm.
Now, for those of you who don't know, Avienda, she first appeared in book 3. She was met by Nynaeve, Egwene, and Elaine on their travels from the White Tower to Tyr while they were hunting for the Black Aja. And she actually helps rescue them and pull them out of a sticky situation that they found with some dark friends and a couple of Myrddraal. And from there, she travels with them to kind of keep them safe, and also because she feels like she has some form of responsibility for them, because Avienda and the small group of spear maidens she was traveling with asked for their help because one of them had been injured. So Avienda quickly befriended the three Aes Sedai, the three accepted, because Egwene, Elaine, and Nynaeve are still all accepted. They're not Aes Sedai just yet.
Mhm.
But now, Avienda will be traveling to the Threefold Land with Egwene and Rand to become a wise one. Now, as far as that goes, as their group goes, not everyone will be traveling with Rand to the Aiel Waste. In fact, Nynaeve and Elaine, alongside the Gleeman Tom Merrilin, as well as the thief catcher Joylin, who was introduced in Book 3, will all be traveling to Tanchico in Terabon, a city in the country of Terabon. Now, the reason why they are going to be traveling to Tanchico is because at the end of Book 3, Elaine, Nynaeve, Egwene, and Moiraine were able to capture 2 of the 13 Black Aja that had escaped from the White Tower. And in the process, Egwene had figured out that she can tie off weaves. Now, this is significant because when I first read this, that Egwene figured out how to tie off weaves, I was shocked because by this point, after watching the first 2 seasons of The Wheel of Time on Amazon Prime,
Yep.
At least in season 2, Moraine's warder Lan reveals that the ability to tie off weaves was an ability known only in the Age of Legends, and after the breaking of the world, that ability was lost. So the Forsaken, being remnants of the Age of Legends, still possess this ability. But as it turns out, in the books, tying off weaves is not a forgotten ability. If anything, it's something that almost any Aes Sedai can do, any channeler can do. I point this out because when I read that part in Book 3 that Egwene figured out how to tie off weaves, I was like, is she like special? Did she rediscover this ability? But no, turns out it's just something she figured out on her own, but she would have eventually learned how to do it if she was still in the White Tower and continuing her education. But so it's significant because when they capture these two Black Aes Sedai, they keep them shielded by tying off a shielding weave around both of them. And while they're still in the Stone of Tyr, they begin interrogating them. And both of them, they don't reveal much about what their goals were and what they're intending to do, and they don't really reveal like the identities of any other members of the Black Aja aside from the 13 that they already know about. But they do continuously tell Moiraine and the 3 girls the same thing: go to Tanchico, because part of the next step in their plans was to go to Tanchico. They don't tell them why, but they hint that it has something to do with finding a weapon that could be used to control the Dragon Reborn. So seeing that this is important, Elaine, Nynaeve, Tom, and Joylin, decide to travel to Tanchico. Moiraine goes with Rand, and Egwene goes with Rand so that way she can learn how to use her dreamwalking powers. Aside from those two groups, Perrin, alongside the Hunter of the Horn Fail Bashir, as well as Loyal and 3 Aiel warriors that they all met on their travels. Gaul is a Aiel warrior that Perrin had rescued in Book 2, and Bain and Chayad, who are 2 spear maidens that also traveled with Elaine and her group. They decide to go with Perrin because they had befriended Fail. And of course, they want to make sure she's safe. So their group decides that they must travel to the 2 rivers to help Perrin's people, because as I've said before, the White Cloaks are currently occupying the 2 rivers, and hordes of Trollocs are attacking the region. So before their groups depart, Rand assembles the High Lords into the inner chamber of the fortress where Kalandor was originally locked away. There, Rand reveals at least the first part of his plan, the part of the plan he wants everyone to know, and that is to go to the Aiel Waste. And he also tells them that they will be going to war. He orders the Tyrant High Lords to declare war on their neighboring nation of Carian. I rewatched season 2 of The Wheel of Time in full just to freshen up my memory, because that season was really good. And most of it, the first half of the season, takes place in Carrion. And this whole time, I've been pronouncing the city's name as Cairhine. But then I watched the show, and it's it's Kyrian. Or Kyrene. I'm like, it's that damn H. The H is silent. Anyway, so Rand orders the Tyrants to declare war on their neighboring country of Kyrene, because currently Kyrene has descended into a state of total civil war with the High Lords the nobility of Kyrene currently fighting for control of the Sun Throne. Because little to everyone's knowledge, not many people know this, but the previous king of Kyrene was assassinated. Well, that's actually public knowledge, but what they don't know was that Tom Maryland was the one who assassinated him. He's more than a Gleeman.
Ooh.
And because of his assassination, the country has descended in civil war. Currently, the Queen of Andor, Morghese, had sent a battalion into Carrion to try to stabilize the region and help them to peacefully sort out their mess, as well as determine who's going to be the next ruler who sits on the Sun Throne. And Rand, wanting to begin the process of bringing Carrion into his control, he commands the Lords of Tyrion to declare war and begin their assault on the country as well as the city. And he sets out several of the High Lords to specifically handle the war, mainly because these are the ones that he knows would follow his orders without, maybe not so much without question, but without trying to undermine his authority. And then after his declarations of war and his declaring who's going to be in charge while he's gone, Rand takes the crystal sword Kalandor and plunges it into the ground at the center of the chamber. It's pretty much sets it back into where it was before. When he does this, it causes the entire fortress as well as the surrounding area to shake like there's an earthquake. It's at this time Perrin, who also a Ta'veren, wanting to avoid getting caught up into the mess that is Rand, takes off from the stone and begins his journey into the west to return to his native home of the 2 rivers. Now, the way that Perrin gets to the Two Rivers is he convinces Loyal to guide him and his friends through the ways, because as Perrin remembered, there is a waygate inside the mountains that border the Two Rivers, because Two Rivers used to be where the kingdom of Manetheren, which was an ancient kingdom that has long since disappeared, there used to be a waygate at their capital city. So they go to the nearest waygate, and from there they begin their journey to the Two Rivers.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm gonna do from here, just so I'm not jumping back and forth between the 4 stories that take place, because there will also be there will be like a little like short scenes taking place in the White Tower, because some shit happens in the White Tower. In fact, I will go ahead and talk about that one, because that is the shortest storyline in this book. So, in book 3, one of the main characters of the story, a girl named Min, who has the ability to see images of the future, or at least images. Whenever she looks at a person, she sees glimpses. She gets glimpses of their future. She was traveling with Rand and Moraine, and she stayed with them while they were hiding in the Mountains of Mist. But when Rand took off to the Stone of Tyr and Moraine followed him, Moraine told Min to journey to the White Tower to report to the Amerlin Seat. And in order to avoid suspicion, and also to avoid the sisters, the Aes Sedai, from recognizing her, she takes on a disguise and calls herself Elmindreda, a giddy, empty-headed woman. And Elmindreda, or Min, she goes there, she stays at the White Tower, she reports to Suan and her Keeper of Chronicles, Leanne, about what is going on. Before Moraine leaves Tyr to head to the Aiel Way, she sends a message to the Amerlin Seat telling her that Rand has claimed the Stone of... has taken over the Stone of Tyr and has claimed Kalandor for himself, officially declaring himself as the Dragon Reborn. Now, while she's there, Min gets caught up in a coup d'etat, where another Aes Sedai, a woman named Eleda, he gathers a group of supporters because she believes that they had been secretly supporting and aiding Rand. She's not wrong, but thing is that the stipulations of this coup d'etat were, it was all accomplished and held together by a very fine thread, a little loophole in the laws that maintain order in the White Tower. So, legally speaking, this coup was just, and as a result, Suan and Leanne Sharif, her Keeper of Chronicles, are overthrown, and as a result of being overthrown, both women are stilled. And for those of you who don't know, stilling is the female term for severing, which means that they are permanently cut off from the One Power. And Eleda sets herself up as the next Amerlin. Now, when this happens, it causes a massive uproar in the tower. Half of the White Tower, of the sisters in the White Tower, mainly the sisters of the Blue Aja, flee the tower, as well as sisters from all the other Ajas, except for the Red Aja, because Eleda herself was a member of the Red Aja. Their Aja was in a more favorable position, and they support Eleda as the Amerlin Seat 100%. While the other Ajas are kind of split down the middle, but in the end, about half of the Aes Sedai in the tower flee the tower. There's fighting, warders who are trying to protect their Aes Sedai either get killed or driven out and escape with their Aes Sedai as well. There's a group of there was a small group of warders in training led by Elaine's brother Gawain Khan. They support Eleda and assist in quelling the uprising. And during all this chaos, Min manages to free both Suan and Lian and get them out of the White Tower. Gawain, he stops them, but eventually lets them go and helps them escape the city. But still, he maintains his support for Eleda, mainly because he blames Suan and has a lot of animosity towards Suan because he has no idea where his sister is. Elaine has all but disappeared for months, and no one is telling him anything. And as the crown prince of Andor, it's his responsibility to protect his sister, who is heir to the throne. So you can understand where his frustration is, because how is he supposed to protect his sister when he doesn't even know where she is?
Exactly.
And no one is telling him anything. Hell, Suan doesn't even tell him anything when he helps her escape. All she says is that your sister is safe. So, in their escape, Min actually frees another quote-unquote prisoner from the tower, and that prisoner is Logain Ablar, who was a former false dragon who had been captured in Book 1 and Gentle, which is the male equivalent of stealing. And Logain, after being offered, he makes a deal with Suan that if Logain helps them find the rebel sisters who escaped from Tarvalon, she will help him get revenge against the women who stilled him, and that's mainly the women who captured him and brought him to the tower to be gentle, and that is the Red Aja. So basically, help me escape, help me find my rebel sisters, and we'll help you overthrow the Red Aja. So he agrees, and he helps them in their journey from Tarvalon, and finding the organized group of sisters of Aes Sedai that escaped from Tarvalon. And as far as those events goes within Book 4, that's pretty much it. We won't learn much of the Rebel Sisters until Book 5 and onward. So that's pretty much it for the for Min's story in this book. Next, gonna talk about Nynaeve and Elaine. So Nynaeve and Elaine make it to Tanchico. They actually managed to get to Tanchico in a very timely manner because they charter a boat owned by the Sea Folk, or the Athan Miar. The Athanan. Hang on, it's one of those. It's one of those names. Okay. Yeah. The Athaan Mir, or the Sea Folk. They're kind of like, if you want to break them down into like different categories, the Athaan Mir are kind of like the Aiel, except their entire civilization is sea-based rather than desert, and they live most of their lives on their boats. They travel the seas. They find most of their trade by, like, transporting cargo, fishing, things like that. There's not much known about the Sea Folk and their civilization. Only that they have the best built boats and the best navigators. Pretty much anything to do with the sea and the sea life, the Sea Folk are the ones that pioneer, are the pioneers of sea life and sea travel. So Nynaeve and Elaine request passage on a Sea Folk vessel, and the Sea Folk, the captain of the Sea Folk, and her Windfinder. The Sea Folk vessels are captained only by women. So the captain is always going to be the captain of the Sea Folk vessel is always going to be a woman, And almost every sea folk vessel have another woman called a Windfinder. And while at first Nynaeve assumes that the Windfinder is kind of like a wisdom, but rather she's more of like a navigator, someone who uses their so-called wind sense to navigate the sea. But they later find out that Windfinders are actually channelers, and these channelers, kind of like the wise ones, they use their abilities to control the weather, which is the secret to why seafolk vessels are so fast, because they're so skilled at weatherworking. They use massive weaves, because when Elaine first sees a seafolk windfinder at work, she describes it as seeing a thick cord of threads going high into the sky. And as far as she can tell, the windfinder is using weaves of wind and water to control the pressure, the changes in pressure in the sky to create favorable winds and weather.
Mm-hmm.
So the seafolk agree to take whenever you request passage on a seafolk vessel. They don't charge you for it. They offer, if you want passage from one place to another by one of their boats, they give it to you for free. There's usually a bargain, and the way they work it out is like it's bargain based. Like okay, passage on our boat is free of charge. We only ask that you keep to yourselves, or like stay out of our way, things like that. But when they were chartering the boat, the Windfinder and the captain asked them, is the Dragon Reborn really who he says he is? Has he really taken up the sword that cannot be wielded? And Nynaeve and Elaine confirmed this, and the captain reveals that they believe that Rand is also their prophesized Messiah. So, like the Aiel, the Seafolk have their own prophecies of the Dragon Reborn, but they call him the Kuramor. So they ask them, where exactly are you going, and why? They, without revealing too much, they tell them that they are tracking some very dangerous people to Tanchico and Terabon. And the captain and Windfinder immediately agreed to take them along the coast to take them on their journey to Tanchico, and they agreed to take them there as quickly as they can. Because normally, whenever they agree to provide passage for anybody that's not a seafolk, they do it in a way that protects the identity of their Windfinders, because the seafolk are terrified of the Aes Sedai. They don't want the Aes Sedai to know that their Windfinders are channelers, because if the Aes Sedai find out that their Windfinders are channelers, the Aes Sedai will try to recruit their Windfinders and take them to the White Tower. Because the thing about the Aes Sedai is that they believe every channeler should come to the White Tower for formal training. All right, and whether you want to or not.
You can't just force somebody to go to the tower.
They have their ways of making... Yeah, it's a little questionable, but I mean, most of the time, like within the Westlands, the Aes Sedai, they don't exactly force you to come to the White Tower, but they're very persuasive.
It's almost it's giving Jedi, the Jedi. We're all good. We don't do nothing wrong. It's giving the Jedi.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though: the Seafolk and the Aiel are no better, because
It's fair.
The wise ones, when they realize a girl has like a specific ability or certain traits that they're looking for, they immediately summon her to them and make them an apprentice, whether they like it or not.
Yeah, it's
like Avienda herself is a maiden of the spear, and maidens of the spear devote their lives to the spear. But when a wise one calls you to be a wise one, you can't refuse it. But historically speaking, many spear maidens who have become wise ones have stories of how they're summoned to become a wise one, but they often in the first few years of their training, they've often tried to run away and go back to their lives. But the wise ones will immediately chase their ass down and drag them kicking and screaming back to their training.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same. It's kind of the same with the Sea Folk, because the Sea Folk, they, the Athan Mir, when they find a channeler of significant strength, they immediately begin training her on how to use their weather weaves and get them along the path of becoming a wind finder. So that way, of course, all that other shit. So the Athan Mir take them to Tenchiko. Along the way, that's when Elaine realizes that the Windfinders can channel and use very complex and massive weaves to control the weather. And she convinces the Windfinder to teach her how to use these weaves, she tells the Windfinder that she's never seen weaves of this scale before, and she's seen some very powerful Aes Sedai use their power.
Mm-hmm.
So the Windfinder, seeing that since the Dragon Reborn has declared himself, she sees that times are changing, might as well, right? And so she teaches Elaine how to some of her weather working, and Elaine actually becomes a very skilled weather worker. So they make it to Tenchiko, and they set up base in one of the inns. And during their stay in Tenchiko, Nynaeve and Elaine have to be very careful because Tenchiko is a very lawless city. Think Hercules when they make it to Thebes. It's just the old Disney film Hercules when they make it to Thebes, and it's just full of crime and disorder and everything. It's like that. So for the most part, Nynaeve and Elaine aren't able to explore much of the city because of how lawless it is. So they rely mainly on Tom and Julian to do the searching for them. Tom, being a gleeman, is very skilled in gathering information just by bar hopping, going to different taverns, and speaking, and basically getting the local gossip.
Yeah.
He knows how to pick out the accurate information from just idle gossip, while Julian, being a tyrant thief catcher, he's like a detective, so he knows how to identify the criminal underbelly, which isn't hard. It's Tenchiko. It's criminal underbelly is more of like the criminal overbelly.
Hair.
It wears its underbelly on its sleeve. So Joylin uses his own detective skills to find out more information to figure out where the Black Azure could possibly be. And when they left Tyr, Egwene had actually given the girls the stone ring, so that way they can keep in contact with each other in their travels by meeting each other in the dream world. So they would regularly check in with Egwene, tell them what they found or haven't found, and things like that. And Egwene tells them that of how the dream world will actually take you or show you what you need if the need is intense. And during one of Nynaeve's travels in the dream world, she uses that to her advantage, and it actually takes her to a place within Tenchiko. It's like when the place that the dream world takes her is kind of looks like a museum. She sees like artifacts in cases. There's areas that are roped off, and basically like an exhibition hall. And hell, she even sees dinosaur bones. But she doesn't know exactly where this is. But where specifically there's a specific part in this museum that it keeps taking her to. And on examining the exhibits, she finds one particular artifact. She finds actually two artifacts hidden within this museum. One of them is a disc with the ancient symbol of the Aes Sedai on it, and she recognizes it as one of the seals to the Dark One's prison. But she feels that that's not what the Black Aja are looking for. So,
Mhm.
examining the other exhibits in the area, she finds one particular exhibit with a strange piece of jewelry in it. It looks like like a pair of black metal gauntlets and a collar.
Mhm.
And looking at it, it looks eerily familiar to the Shan Shan's Adam.
Ooh.
And just a quick recap: uh, the Shan Shan use a ter'angreal called an Adam to enslave channelers. Now, so the Shan Shan use these enslaved channelers they call Damane in their quest for power. So they use the Damane as weapons. So they've effectively weaponized the true source by enslaving channelers using an Adam. And when she finds this black gauntlet and collar, because it's two gauntlets with a chain connecting to with a pair of chains connecting to one black collar, she sees it and she deduces that this collar must be a male equivalent of an Adam.
Mhm.
But instead of controlling a female channeler, it's meant to control a male channeler. And they decide that they need to focus. She tells Elaine, and they decide they need to focus their search for this artifact in this exhibit in particular. But while they're doing their investigations, they actually encounter one of the Forsaken.
Ooh.
And we've actually seen this Forsaken at the end of season 2, and that is the Forsaken Mogedian.
Okay. I mean, she kind of served in the second season at the area. She kind of served. She's a coward, but she kind of served.
Yeah, the thing about the series is that they made her come across as like this overconfident bad bitch. Like she's insane. They make her seem like she's insane or unhinged, and
she's more. But in the books, from what you make her seem, she seems like she's more all talk, no bite, like a little chihuahua.
She is all bite when she knows she has the advantage, but once she loses the advantage, she turns into a sniveling little bitch. Now, don't get me wrong, Mogedian is very powerful, and there's not many channelers in the modern day that can like rival her, that can come close to her power. But as we find out towards the end of the book, she is actually the weakest of the Forsaken, and Nynaeve is just as powerful as Mogedian. In fact, Nynaeve's power is on the same level as Mogedian.
Ooh.
So, and we figured this out because when they first encounter Mogedian, the two girls had used their power to. They were trying to avoid using their power because they didn't want to tip off the Black Aja that they were there. But at one point, they did use their power to defend themselves during their travels throughout Tenchiko, and this actually catches Mogedian's attention, and she corners them in their private room at the inn that they're staying at, and Mogedian, using weaves of compulsion, questions the two. She doesn't hurt them; she just compels them to tell her everything that they know, why they're in Tenchiko, what they're looking for, things like that, and basically revealing all of their plans to Mogedian. And at the end of it, Mogedian uses a weave of compulsion to compel them to forget their entire encounter. But when Nynaeve and Elaine finally make their move on the Black Aja, they decide not to go straight for the Black Aja themselves, but after the seal and the Black Adam.
Mm-hmm.
So just to make sure that the Black Adam doesn't fall into the Dark One's hands to be used against Ren. And they, in their investigations, they realize that the exhibit that the two artifacts are being held in is actually in the palace of one of the high ladies of Tenchiko, a woman named Amathera. So they decide they're going to rescue. They decide they're going to rescue this woman because she is what they call the panarch. So the way that the monarchy works is that there is a king, but there's also a panarch, and they kind of like share power and kind of like keep each other in check through a series of checks and power, blah blah blah, all that crap. And they realize that the Black Aja is holding Emathera hostage, so they decide to rescue her from the Black Aja while getting the Adam and the Seal of the Dark One's prison. So while Elaine goes to rescue Emathera from the Black Aja, Nynaeve goes into the exhibit and manages to grab both the Adam and the Seal. But while she's doing this, Moghedien walks in and actually walks right by Nynaeve. And the thing is, Moghedien, she's very, like, when she walks in, she's very sure of herself and confident, like, I'm going to take the Seal and I'm going to take this Adam. Like, nothing can stop me, right? But when... Shit, sorry, someone's texting me right now. Alright, cool. My aunt's coming over at 3:30. Well, no, she's leaving work at 3:30 and she's going to come over to the house because she has to meet a contractor. Yep, so, when Moghedien walks in, she has this air of just overconfidence, like nothing can stop her. And when Nynaeve sees her, this triggers her memory, because when Moghedien used her compulsion weaves to make Nynaeve forget the interrogation, thing about compulsion weaves, they're more effective on people with weak wills and who are not very strong-minded. But Nynaeve is a very strong-willed and strong-minded individual. So, being as stubborn as she is, the compulsion weaves didn't fully work on her to make her forget. She was actually starting to remember the encounter before she saw Moghedien, but she couldn't really like remember everything. But when she sees Moghedien, this causes her to completely overcome the compulsion weave, and she remembers the entire interrogation at Moghedien's hand. And this enrages Nynaeve because she's like basically she's like,
bitch.
This bitch, right? Yeah. And so, and since Nynaeve is still struggling with that mental block preventing her from channeling at will, she can only channel when she's extremely pissed off. Well, the being triggered like this pisses her off enough to where she is able to call upon she's able to embrace the source, and she lashes out at Moghedien, and the two of them starts dueling. And the thing is, though, Nynaeve realizes that she's fighting a Forsaken, and she thinks to herself, I'm probably gonna die. This is a Forsaken. She's probably gonna kill me. Might as well just give it everything I got. So they're having a sort of like mental like shoving match with each other, with the two of them trying to either shield or still the other, right? So they're like they're throwing like different weaves and threads at each other, and they're matching each other. And at one point, Nynaeve is like at one point in the fight, Nynaeve is like, okay, why am I still alive?
Right.
I'm not dead. And so, like, as she's pushing against Moghedien's power, she realizes Moghedien is struggling just as much as she is to overpower Nynaeve. And it hits her that, she's matching Moghedien in terms of raw strength. And finally, so this gives Nynaeve the confidence boost she needs. And she actually manages to get one over Moghedien. And when Moghedien realizes that she lost the upper hand against Nynaeve, she turns and tries to run away. Because the thing about Moghedien, and another one of the Forsaken tells this to Ran later, which we'll get into later. Asmodean, this Forsaken, I spoiled it, whoops. So yes, one of the other Forsaken, the Forsaken Asmodean, tells Ran that Moghedien she prefers to hide in the shadow and only strike when she knows that she has the upper hand. Even if she's in a one-on-one, if she's in a fight where there's a 50-50 chance of her winning, she would rather cut her losses and run.
Yeah.
She would not take that chance.
She's smart.
So when Moghedien Yeah, so when Gideon realizes she doesn't have the upper hand against Nynaeve, she turns and tries to run, but Nynaeve quickly restrains her with weaves of air and shields her with weaves of spirit, preventing her from moving and touching the source.
Ooh.
Nynaeve the thing is though, Nynaeve makes a mistake of tying off the weave because, as they learn later on, it is more effective to continuously maintain a shield over another channeler than tying off the shield to where it sustains itself. Because if you tie off a weave around another channeler, that channeler can actually undo the weave over time. Granted, it may take some time, and unless the weave and the weave is very complex, they can actually untie it themselves and escape, which Mulgedian does because even though Nynaeve restrained her, one of the Black Aja shows up and she uses a Terangrial that can it shoots balefire. And for those of you who don't know or may have forgotten from the last episode, balefire is basically a beam of disintegration, except instead of turning you to dust, it erases you from time.
No.
And it's unblockable too. So this Black Aja shows up and starts shooting, uses the Terangrial to shoot balefire at Nynaeve. Nynaeve is forced to flee, but before she flees, she realizes that Mulgedian had escaped. But it doesn't matter. Nynaeve escapes. Elaine succeeded in restraining another member of the Black Aja and rescuing the Panarch Emethera. The two of them escaped from the palace. Emethera heads to the king's palace to seek his help, and Nynaeve and Elaine decide to make their escape from Tanchico. At that point, that's all that happens with them in this book. They leave Tanchico, and the rest of their story continues in Book 5, which we will be talking about next week. But the story is not over just yet. So now we're going to go over to the group that travels to the Two Rivers. So Perrin leads his team through the ways into the through the Waygate that is situated in the mountains that border the Two Rivers. It's there that Perrin notices that he can't sense the presence of any wolves that typically inhabit the Two Rivers. It's like they've all disappeared. And over time, as he uses his power to journey through the dream world, because Perrin is, with his power, he's actually a form of Dreamwalker as well, because wolves also have the ability, as it turns out, to enter the dream world. So when he enters the dream world to try to look for the wolves, he actually encounters the spirit of this wolf that he befriended in Book 1. You actually see this wolf in Season 2 of The Wheel of Time, a wolf called Hopper. Hopper, unfortunately, was killed by the White Cloaks, but his spirit still inhabits the dream world and will sometimes appear before Perrin to offer him advice and aid him in whatever he needs. Hopper appears and tells Perrin to leave the Two Rivers because there is a dark force there that is killing any wolves. It's a mysterious, shadowy figure that Perrin encounters several times throughout the course of his story. While in the Two Rivers, Perrin learns that the dark friend Padan Fain has allied himself with the Children of Light, and he is the reason why the Children of Light have come to the Two Rivers, because the Children of Light know that Perrin is from the Two Rivers, and they're occupying it so that way they can try to draw Perrin out, as well as also fall into Padan Fain's schemes to enact vengeance on Rand, because Padan Fain throughout this story continuously tries to convince the Children of the Light, or the White Cloaks, to attack and just kill everyone in the Two Rivers. He keeps telling them that they're all dark friends. Don't believe them. They're dark friends. But the White Cloaks aren't fooled. They know that not everyone in the Two Rivers is a dark friend. They just want Perrin and his friends. Perrin does eventually make contact with the villagers of Eamon Field, his home village, but he learns that unfortunately his family, his mother, father, and his younger siblings, and pretty much everyone in his extended family were murdered by the Trolloc forces. He also learns that a group of Tuathan, the pacifistic Tinker people, pacifistic nomadic people, they are also trapped in the Two Rivers. They were making their way through the Two Rivers, but they were attacked, and most of them were killed by the Trollocs. And they also take refuge in Eamon Field, where Perrin has rallied the villagers to build up their defenses, set up traps. They also encounter a pair of Aes Sedai. We've seen these Aes Sedai before. It's actually the brown sister, Varen, and the green sister, Alana. The reason why the two Aes Sedai were in the Two Rivers was because they believed that the Two Rivers is filled to the brim with potential pupils, recruits for the White Tower.
Oh, really?
So yeah, because the thing is that two very powerful initiates came from the Two Rivers, Egwene and Nynaeve. So they have reason to believe that the Two Rivers has, because of the old blood is running very strong in the Two Rivers, they believe that it's possible that there are plenty of young women there who either have the potential to learn how to channel or who are born with the natural spark to channel. But when the White Cloaks arrived, they ended up getting trapped there because the White Cloaks basically quarantined the Two Rivers, not only to protect it from the Trollocs, but to also ensure that they know who comes and goes. So that way, if Perrin, Mat, or Rand were to show up in the Two Rivers again, they'd be able to capture them and arrest them. Yep. So with the help of Rand's adoptive father, Tam al'Thor, as well as Mat's father, Abel Cawthon, he convinces the Two Rivers to fight back. He leads them against the Trollocs, and unfortunately, much to Perrin's annoyance, the people of the Two Rivers appoint him as the new Lord of the Two Rivers, and they give him a nickname, Perrin Goldeneyes, or Lord Perrin. Perrin manages to also convince the villagers of all the neighboring villages in the Two Rivers to come to the Two Rivers, not only to protect them, but also to build up their forces to fight against the Trollocs. Before their final showdown with the Trollocs, Perrin actually marries Faile. Because throughout the story, the two of them actually develop a close relationship, and eventually he decides he wants to marry her, and he tasks her with traveling to Caemlyn and asking Queen Morgase to lend soldiers to help them fight, because the Two Rivers is still technically a territory, a part of the territory that Andor controls. But that doesn't end up happening. Faile wasn't able to make it across the river leading to the road to Caemlyn because the Trollocs, for one thing, attacked and burnt the village of Tarrant Ferry to the ground, destroying the ferry, cutting off any escape from the Two Rivers, at least from that route. The Children of the Light, led by Dane Bernhold, they actually confront Perrin and all the villagers that gathered themselves in the in Eamon's Field. I'm sorry, and they demand that the villagers turn Perrin over for arrest because, one, they accuse Perrin of being a dark friend, and two, they are charging him with murder because he had killed a couple of White Cloaks in the past. And while that is true, Perrin did kill a couple of White Cloaks, it wasn't just straight up murder, it was out of self-defense. And let's be honest, I'm going to be totally honest with you, and the people of the Two Rivers agree, nobody gives two shits about a couple of dead White Cloaks, because the White Cloaks are basically the Spanish Inquisition, the KKK, and the Nazis all rolled together in one group.
Jesus.
Yep. Now, they're not so much as like the Nazis, as in like they, white, or like the KKK, whereas it's white supremacy and the whole blonde hair, blue eyes, superior race kind of deal. It's more heavy leaning on the Inquisition. So they're witch hunters. They are dark friend hunters. But the thing about being a dark friend hunter is that dark friends know how to hide themselves very well. So in the end, when White Cloaks are hunting for dark friends, all they manage to succeed in doing is sowing mistrust between neighbors, stirring up trouble. Like, if they suspect someone's dark friends, but they don't have proof, what the White Cloaks will end up doing is start spreading rumors and inciting uprisings and mobs and riots, just so they can kill one person that they suspect is a dark friend.
Mm-hmm.
So they're very problematic, and they cause more trouble than they end up helping. And it's just very like they put themselves on such a high pedestal, saying that, oh, we fight for the light. You fight against us, you're fighting against the light itself. Well, spoiler alert, one of the White Cloaks leaders is Dark Friend. So the Dark Friends, the White Cloaks, are not exempt from being infiltrated by the Dark Friends. In fact, Dark Friends are the Dark Friends that are in control of the White Cloaks are the reason why the White Cloaks are very problematic. Well, actually, they're only like a small part of the reason why they're problematic. Without the Dark Friends infiltrating their forces, the White Cloaks they're the problem. Like, if I had a choice between being under the control of the Aes Sedai or being under the control of the White Cloaks, I'd rather be under the control of the Aes Sedai, because at least the Aes Sedai don't discriminate.
Yeah.
And they're not dumb enough to just walk around and foolishly call out like that, point fingers and say that person's a dark friend, just like the White Cloaks would do. So the White Cloaks demand that the Two Rivers hand over Perrin for arrest, but they refuse. But Perrin doesn't want the Two Rivers to get caught up in more senseless fighting, especially with the White Cloaks. So he makes a deal with Dane Bernhold, who I should mention has a personal vendetta against Perrin, because Dane believes Perrin was the one responsible for his father's death, which wasn't the case. Dane straight out accuses Perrin of murdering his father, but Perrin tells him that's not what happened. Your father was killed during the Battle of Toman Head against the invading force of the Shan Shan. But the thing is that unless you were there and you saw the Shan Shan themselves, pretty much the rest of the Westlands don't really believe that the Shan Shan are real. They just think that they are just they're just some rebel group, or they're just some group controlled by the Aes Sedai, because they've heard the rumors that there are channelers using their power as a weapon, and they just think, oh, it's the Aes Sedai.
Mm-hmm.
So, but in the end, Dane agrees to Perrin's terms. The children will fight alongside the Two Rivers when the Trollocs attack in force, and at the end of the battle, Perrin will go ahead and surrender himself to the White Cloaks and allow them to take him back to Amadicia, where he'll be tried and executed.
Oh, not executed.
Now, Rand does have one final confrontation with the Shadow Slayer, that this strange figure that he keeps encountering in the dream world, who had been killing the wolves.
Mm-hmm.
in the Two Rivers. Um, Perrin actually finally confronts him and defeats him, and it does the identity of the Shadow Killer isn't really revealed, so to speak, but it's heavily implied that it was actually um, this foreigner who had come to the Two Rivers to help them, and he happens to be a hunter for the Horn of the Lear. But after Perrin defeats defeats the Shadow Killer, the guy is seen fleeing from the Two Rivers, and he actually has a wound that Perrin had inflicted on the Shadow Killer in the Dream World. Because whatever wound or injury you get in the Dream World, it actually does appear on your physical body. But he's gone, and Perrin doesn't have anything to worry. Doesn't bother worrying about him for the time being, because it's not long after this that the Trolloc forces attack Eamon's Field in force. But despite their full assault, the Two Rivers forces actually managed to push back and defeat the Trollocs. Even though the Children of the Light agreed to aid them in battle, they didn't. They just sat back and watched. And if anything, the men of the Two Rivers, they had gathered all their wives and their children in the center of the village to be protected. But when their wives saw that the children weren't gonna help their husbands, the wives like, "Oh, you useless pieces of shit! Come on, we're gonna show you what it means to help our husbands." So all the women end up picking up weapons and join their husbands in the fight, and that is pretty much what helped them succeed in their battle against the Trollocs.
Ooh.
And once the Trollocs were defeated and were driven out of the Two Rivers, the White Cloaks immediately demand Perrin to surrender, but Perrin, and as well as the rest of the villagers, they tell the White Cloaks to take a hike, because the agreement was the Children of the Light would fight with the villagers to defeat the Trollocs, meaning they had to also be taking part of the fight and helping them defend the Two Rivers, but instead they just sat back and watched. So, and seeing that the White Cloaks, seeing that they were clearly outnumbered by all the villagers, they just said,
"Peaced out."
"All right." They just pieced out,
Yeah,
and but while they were leaving, they were all like, "You are all dark friends." Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay.
But seeing that his own plans were ruined, Padan Fain ends up leaving the Two Rivers and actually journeys to the White Tower. And as far as that part of the story goes, that is it. We don't see much. We don't see anything of Padan Fain until book 5, and we actually won't see Perrin again until book 6. So he doesn't actually. So yeah. So Perrin. It's assumed that Perrin. It's implied that Perrin. Throughout the events of book 5, he is actually just helping the Two Rivers rebuild itself as well, like all the villages rebuild themselves, and he's been named the new lord of the Two Rivers. And they actually managed to solve the problem of the Trollocs entering the Two Rivers, because as it turns out, the reason why the Trollocs were able to enter in mass into the Two Rivers without alerting the Andorran forces of Camelin was because they were coming through the ways. They were using the way gates in the old city of Menethrin. So during the height of the fight, Loyal and the Aielmen actually went back to the way gate and sealed it up. And the way they did that was Loyal took the keys of the gate. So the way you open the way gate is you pluck a leaf from the way gate, and the leaf itself is the trifoil leaf of the Avendasora. So when you pull it off the door will open, and when you put it back on, the door will close again. So there are 2 leaves that open the door, one on the inside and one on the outside, and you can actually permanently seal the door by removing the leaves. And so what Loyal had ended up doing was he took both leaves and put them on the outside of the door, so that way any Trollocs coming from inside the ways won't be able to leave, like actually go through the doors because the leaves aren't there. So they, after the fight, they go back to the ways and they make sure to permanently seal it, and that's pretty much it with the Two Rivers story. And from this point on, Perrin will help his people to rebuild their homes, and we won't see Perrin again until book 6.
Mm-hmm.
And now we go to the final. We go to the remaining story arc in book 5, and that is the story of Rand and his travels through the Aiel Wastes. So after plunging Kalandor into the heart of the stone, which also technically fulfills another part of the prophecies of the dragon. The Dragon Reborn will plunge the sword into the heart of the stone, and blah blah blah. Continue on the remainder of his journeys. Rand, he understands that the power of Kalandor is too much for him to handle at the moment. He's not really ready or responsible enough to use this power safely. So he decides to place the sword. Basically, it's like an allusion to the sword in the stone. He stabs the Kalandor into the heart of the Stone of Tyr, and he weaves. He places several tied-off weaves that act as traps. So if anyone but Rand tries to take the stone from its resting place, they'll die. It'll trigger the traps, and it won't be pretty. So from there, he departs the Stone of Tyr with Mat, Egwene, Moraine, Lan, as well as the Aiel that had taken the Stone of Tyr.
Mm-hmm.
And they travel a little ways out of the city of Tyr. Mm-hmm. And Moraine asks Rand, "How do you intend to get us to Threefold Lands? Because it will take 'em months to travel on foot." And Rand reveals that they're going to use a portal stone. And if you remember from book 2, Rand had an unfortunate encounter with one of these portal stones, which are even older versions of the Waygates. They were built by some ancient society that predates even the Age of Legends. And from what they know about the portal stones is that they were used to study the multiverse, as well as being used to transport themselves instantaneously from different places, as long as it's the destination is the destination is to another portal stone. And Rand had in his studies of the Threefold Lands, he found a reference to another portal stone near Ruidian. And when he asks the Aiel chief that was in charge of the Aiel forces there at the Stone of Tyr, a man named Ruark, Ruark confirms that there is a portal stone near this Aiel city called Ruidian. So, upon reaching the portal stone, Rand activates it and successfully transports himself, his team, as well as all the hundreds of Aiel that were with him, and they appear just outside of the forbidden city of Ruidian. And waiting for them, there are a couple of clans, Aiel clans, Ruark's own clan of the Tardad Aiel, and also a rival clan called the Shido Aiel. Now, remember the Shido. The Shido Aiel are very problematic. In fact, they are the only Aiel clan that refuses to acknowledge Rand as their chief of chief. They're very problematic. They honestly, they're infuriating. They prove themselves to be a very contentious clan, and they cause a lot of problems for Rand down the line. They also meet a group of Aiel wise women. who greet Rand and tell him of his purpose, what he needs to do. So basically, Rand has to undertake the trial of the chiefs. It's not exactly called that, but it's in order for Rand to be proven as the chief of chiefs, he needs to enter Ruidian, and at the very center of the Forbidden City, there is a series of glass archways. Now, these archways are used by the Aiel to prove that to uh, prove themselves worthy of being a clan chief, or that's it. Basically, a clan chief. Now, there are different types of clan chiefs. There's either clan chiefs of septs or clan chiefs of there's either sept chiefs. There's the clan chiefs. There's a clan chief that's even above that. But they have different types of clan chiefs, and the way that you can become a clan chief is that you need to pass through those archways, and if you come out of it alive, the new clan chief will come out with a brand of a red and gold dragon. It's like a tattoo that'll appear on their arm.
Mm.
And so they tell Rand that he must enter the city. Now, looking at Ruidian, from the outside, it looks like it's completely enveloped in this thick mist, and it's unless you're going to enter the city to become a chief or a wise woman, you are not allowed to enter the city. So the wise ones tell Rand that he needs to enter the city, go through the glass arches, and if he returns, then that will determine whether or not he is the chief of chiefs. And Matt reveals that he has to go into the city with Rand. The wise ones are confused by this, but they're like, all right, whatever. You're not Aiel. We can't tell you what to do. And alongside them, they also tell Avienda that she must enter the city as well, because aside from the glass archways, there's another ter'angreal in the city. It's like a series of 3 large archways. Kind of sounds familiar, right?
It does, yes.
Because they're the Aes Sedai have their own archways, 3 archways that they use in the White Tower. But unlike the archways that the Aes Sedai possess in the White Tower, this series of 3 hoop archways, for one thing, when the way the wise ones prove themselves is first, the first time they go through it is when they first become a wise one apprentice. Once a wise one apprentice answer the call of the wise ones, they're immediately sent into Ruidian to go through one of those 3 archways. Doesn't matter which one you go through, just go through one, and if you come out, you're good. And it's implied that this ter'angreal shows you glimpses of the future, like potential futures. And so they tell Avienda to go into Ruidian and enter the archways. They also, upon talking to Moraine, they also tell her that she needs to go through it as well. And Moraine accepts this because while she doesn't reveal much, it's implied that that's what she was told to do by the Aelfinn when she went through the Redstone Archway back in Tyr. So she already knows she needs to go through that archway. So the thing is that when Rand and Matt enter the city, the only thing they're told is that they can't bring any weapons into the city. They have to enter it on their own. Matt doesn't have to go through the glass archways like Rand does, but still, the rule applies to him as well. No weapons in Ruidian. And Avienda and Moraine, on the other hand, since they're going through a Wise One initiation ceremony, they have to go in completely buck-ass naked. So,
well, shit.
Yeah.
Naked.
Yeah. It's like, I'm not going to question it. It's an Aiel thing.
it's a Joyzy thing. So we don't really know what happens to Avienda and Moiraine. They both go enter Ruidian as naked as the day they were born, and they both come out alive. And so that's that. We don't really know what they saw, and the Wise Ones make it very clear that they don't have to reveal what they saw. That's for them alone. That's for the individuals alone. What Rand enters the glass archway Terangrial, and while he goes through it, he actually sees another Aielman there with him, walking through the archways himself. This Aielman was actually he is a member of the Shido Aiel, and the Shido currently don't have a clan chief. So this guy was supposed to go through the archway to become the new clan chief. But the thing is that what he sees while passing through the glass archways, he's not able to really. What he sees drives him mad, basically, and that Aielman ends up killing himself because what he sees, what the archways show him, he's not really able to accept. Because the thing is, the Aiel culture is a warrior society. They live and die by the spear. There is certain taboos and certain things that they do not allow themselves to touch or use. Like, all Aiel refuse to use swords. It is forbidden for them to use swords. And when Rand passes through the archways, he learns why. So what the archways does is it allows the person passing through the archways to relive portions of his paternal ancestors' lives. So basically, he's seeing the memories of his ancestors, all of his all his forefathers, and he sees pretty much everything. Like, he doesn't see like every ancestors. There's like a definite time skip, but he sees the memories of his certain ancestors. Basically, from the finding of the Aiel as we know him today, to before the breaking of the world, when the Aiel used to be just like the Tinkerers, the Tuathan, who are known as the Gen Aiel, the true Aiel, because before they were this badass desert warrior society, the Aiel were actually extreme pacifists. They wouldn't take up weapons. They wouldn't, not even, or like they won't. They don't adhere to any form of violence, even in self-defense, which is what this philosophy of pacifism was called the Way of the Leaf, which when a potential Aiel clan chief walks through these glass archways, they realize that the Aiel are related to the Tuathan, the Tinkerers, because the Tinkerers still follow the Way of the Leaf. It's just that the modern day Aiel had abandoned the Way of the Leaf. At least when it was, as we know them today, as it turns out, the Aiel abandoned the Way of the Leaf during the breaking of the world. So the ancient Aes Sedai, when the world broke, they charged the Aiel, surviving Aiel, to carry a large number of Angreal, Sa'angreal, and Terangreal into the Aiel Waste, the Threefold Lands, where they would eventually build Ruidian and store these artifacts there in the city. And when they did build the city, the ancient Aes Sedai appeared, and they placed weaves over the city to protect the artifacts hidden within it. And also, at the very center of the city is the only living descendant of the Avendasora, the Tree of Life, which, as right now, I'm not entirely sure what the major significance of the Tree of Life is in the story of the Wheel of Time. They haven't really talked much about it. Like, they haven't really mentioned, is it like a magical tree, or is it just really just a tree with major cultural significance? But either way, there is a living tree. There is a living Avendasora tree in the center of Ruidian, And
Mhm.
in the courtyard that the tree is situated in, there are platforms and pedestals that contain a bunch of contain all of the Saangreal, Terangreal, and Angreal that the Aiel ancestors brought into the Threefold Lands when they finally built the city. But it was in their travels from the Westlands into the Aiel Wastes that we see that a small group of the Aiel broke off and became what is now known as the Tuathan, the Tinkerers. Another sect of them broke off and became the modern day Aiel, while the rest continued their journey deeper into the wastes to eventually build the city to store the artifacts. And Rand sees all of this, and he also sees that one of his ancestors. He also sees the memories of one of his ancestors that was living during the Age of Legends, and he actually witnessed the exact moment that the Dark One's prison was breached. So there used to be this. The ancient Aes Sedai had this research institute, which was this massive floating sphere.
Mhm.
Like they actually had buildings that float in the sky. That's how advanced they were. And when the Dark One's prison was breached and the Boar was created, it was created inside this research institute, this floating sphere. So when it happened, the world shaked. The world around him shook. His ancestor looked up into the sky, and he could see the sphere shatter and this dark cloud just spread out into the sky.
And
So
that-
so he witnesses the Dark One the Dark One prison being bored into, and the Dark One touching the world.
Hmm.
In the end, Rand does manage to he does make it all the way through the archway alive. He isn't driven to madness like the other guy was. Poor thing.
Poor guy.
And he's Shido. Who cares?
Damn.
The Shido Aiel are a bunch of bastards.
Yeah.
It's hard for me. It's hard for me to really feel any sympathy for them.
That's fair.
But
That's fair.
when when Rand comes out of the glass archways, he comes out closer to just under the canopy of the Avendasora tree, and trigger warning, he sees Matt. Matt is hung by the neck by one of the branches of the tree.
Damn.
And let's go ahead and rewind a bit. So as soon as Rand enters the glass archway, Matt starts looking around the courtyard. He sees all the artifacts, the Terangreal, Angreal, Sangreal. Doesn't really know or care what these things are, but he sees one that catches his attention, and that is another twisted red sandstone archway. It looks exactly like the one he went through in Tyr. And when he sees it, he immediately is like, all right, I'm going to get some more answers from these motherfuckers, right? So he foolishly enters this archway. But instead of the Aelfen, the snake-like Aelfen on the other side of the archway, instead of encountering them, he encounters another race of people who are described as more fox-like in appearance, called the Eelfen.
Ooh.
Yep. So the Eelfen, unlike the Aelfen, they don't answer questions. You don't ask them for. You can't. Instead of answering 3 questions, the Eelfen will grant you 3 wishes. So they're more like a genie in a bottle, except it's like a monkey paw. The thing is like the things you ask for from the Eelfen, if you actually knew what you were doing, you would have to it's granted as part of a bargain. All right. You ask for something, and in return, you will give something.
Usually, the Eelfin will ask for things like memories and experiences, maybe like your blood, or maybe something that's personal. It's not money that they ask for; it's something of like a certain type of value. But since he didn't know that, Matt, in his tirade asking them questions, he actually mentions 3 things that he wants from them. And they immediately grant it, but since he didn't actually, like, ask for something and in return will give something, this left the Eelfin with enough wiggle room to just take whatever they wanted from Matt. So the 3 things that he foolishly asks them for is like, while he's like ranting at them to answer his questions, he like foolishly asks for. So here's what the first thing he asks for. He says, "I go from here to there with gaps in my memory, gaps in my life. If I were given a choice, I would fill in those gaps." And immediately the Eelfin are like, "Done." So the Eelfins granted him his wish by granting him the memories of great generals and strategists who lived in the time between the end of the War of the Trollocs and the Consolidation. By granting them to, I'm not sure what I'm sorry, because when I read the book, I wasn't exactly sure what they gave him, because he does have access to memories of, like, from people who are long dead.
Yeah.
Right. And because of this because they gave him access to these memories, he gains complete fluency in the old tongue. And I'm like, when I was doing more research, it said, like, one source says he was given access to memories of great generals and leaders, making him the best military strategist in the world. So now, because of these memories, he now has access to strategists and like basically really smart people that turns Matt into an expert strategist and like an invaluable asset to Rand's army. And while one says these are military strategists from like the old days, another source says that it's memories of his ancestors. But I think more reliably, these are actually memories of his past lives. So it's implied that Matt's soul, every time the wheel weaves it back into the pattern, Matt becomes a great strategist, a great thinker, strategist, philosopher, things like that, right? And who is often known, in each of his life, he's known as like a gambler, but with exceptional luck. So he's very lucky. So that was the first thing that the Eelfin granted him. The second thing, he foolishly asks, he wants to find a way to be free of Aes Sedai and the power. And as a result, the Eelfin give him a foxhead medallion. It's a ter'angreal that protects him from the One Power. So anytime a channeler directs their weaves at Matt, the medallion activates, it turns ice cold, and channelers who, like, mainly Aes Sedai, who have directed their weaves at Matt, they notice that the tendrils of their weaves vanish before they even reach him, so they can't touch him with the power. And the last thing he asks them for is to be out of there. So he's like, I'm done with you guys. I want to get me out of here. I want a way out of here. And they're like, all right, cool. And the thing is that while he foolishly asked for that, he was smart at the same time. So like, he was dumb, but he was stupid, but his stupidity paid off.
Yeah.
Because usually it's later implied that that as part of your bargain with the Eelfin, you need to bargain a way out of their dimension. So, as part of the bargain, like, things they give you, they have to let you out.
Yeah.
All right, in one piece. But in that bargain, you need to stipulate that they need to give you a way out unharmed. But because he didn't know that, and he asked for all this stuff from them, the Eelfin were like, all right, we'll get you out of here. But as to enact their price for his for his 3 wishes, they sent him out of their dimension, but they hanged him at the tree of the tree of life. So it's not really known how long he was hanging there, but as soon as Rand came out and saw him, he cut him down, and he noticed that where he was hanging from, he wasn't exactly hanging from one of the branches of the tree, but rather there was a pole arm that was set into the branches of the tree, and that's where the rope was tied around his neck. So, sorry, trigger warning. If you want to, I'm glad I gave that trigger warning earlier. But Rand cuts him down, and when he does, the pole arm falls from the tree, and as it turns out, it's a type of spear called an Ashandare. Ashandare. I don't know how to pronounce that, but it's basically like a naginata. It's a straight pole, like a spear-like pole arm with a single-edged curved blade. And the reason why the Aelfinn gave it to him, because that's technically a part of his wish to let me see here. I was reading it up, like, because I didn't understand, like, why did they give him the spear?
Mhm.
So, from what I understand, it was given to him because it was part of his 3rd wish as a way to get out of the Aelfinn's dimension. So they gave it to him like this was like as like this is your way out, but it's also your way in because it will later help him fulfill another prophecy which involves him going back into the dimension of the Aelfinn and the Islefinn. So even though Matt was cut down in time and Rand saved his life, the rope that was hanging him by the tree that he was hung by did leave a scar on his neck. So from that point on, Matt started wearing a black scarf to cover the scar.
Mhm.
And the two of them, they leave Ruidian. And when they leave Ruidian, they immediately go to speak with the Wise Ones. And the thing is, though, before they can actually before they can get on with their discussion, one of the Aiel men from the Shido Aiel, a man named Kaladin, immediately confronts them and accuses them of killing his brother, who was the other Aiel that went into Ruidian. And Kaladin doesn't believe that Rand is the Karakorn. But the Wise Ones tell him to shut the hell up and tell Rand to show him his arms. Rand lifts his right arm and he sees tattooed on his forearm is a red and gold dragon. And he's like, see? This proves that I went through the arches and succeeded. But the Wise Ones say, wait, lift your other arm too. And when he does, he pulls back his sleeve and he sees another dragon tattoo on his forearm. And this fulfills the Aiel prophecy of the Karakorn, because whenever an Aiel enters Ruidian to become a chief, if he succeeds and comes out alive, only one of his arms will be marked with the dragon tattoo. But the Karakorn is prophesied to enter Ruidian and return with both arms tattooed. So the Wise Ones declare that Rand is in fact the Karakorn, the Chief of Chiefs. But Kaladin refuses to acknowledge this and actually attacks Rand and Matt, forcing them to defend themselves. But before Kaladin and his Shido can even get any further, the Wise Ones use their power they use their power with the True Source to stop them.
Mhm.
And this confirms to Moraine and Egwene that the Wise Ones can channel.
Mhm.
And from there, the Wise Ones, along with the Tardad Aiel, travel with Rand to the Tardad Aiel's clan home. Along the way, they do meet a caravan of merchants, quote unquote. Or merchant peddlers, really. There's only like several small groups that the Aiel allow to travel through their lands, and that is the Tuathan and peddlers, because peddlers
they allow the peddlers to travel through their lands so they can reach another country that's on the other side of the Threefold Lands called Shara. On the other side of the Threefold Lands is another country called Shara, and Shara is where the silk trade comes from. So, and the only way you can get silk from Shara is either by trading it from the sea folk, who are able to, of course, just travel by sea to get to the country, completely bypassing the Threefold Lands, or the peddlers who travel directly through it. But the thing is that and this is something that both Moraine and Rand suspect, was that these peddlers are dark friends. But what they don't realize is that the disguised as these disguised among the dark friends, there's actually two of the Forsaken.
Oh, dear.
Which Rand does suspect who one of them is, and of course it is proven later it's Lanfear. And the other one is another Forsaken named Asmodean. Now, when Lanfear was trying to convince Rand to join her, she tells Rand that she even managed to convince one of the other male Forsaken to teach him how to channel properly. More complex weaves, things like that. And the Forsaken that she had convinced was Asmodean. But Rand refuses initially, and they do encounter these. They do meet this train of merchants, and they suspect they're dark friends, but they have no proof. And the Aiel tell the merchants that they're going in the wrong direction, and they agree to let them travel with them, because the Aiel will begin to be gathering at this large gathering place called Alcair Dal, which is like this bowl-shaped valley that has a natural acoustic that has this natural acoustic. So if you stand in one spot and you speak normal voice level, everyone within the valley can hear you. So the Aiel clans use this in times where they need to gather to make large decisions that will affect everyone within the Threefold Lands. So they do encounter some issues. They run into several hordes of Trollocs, which they are able to overcome. At one point, Rand almost gets eaten by a Draghkar, which is a man-bat creature that can suck out your soul. But he's rescued by Avienda, who's begun to learn how to use her power with the Source. The Tardad Aiel make their way to Alcair Dal, where they're met by all the other clans of the Aiel, including the Shido. The thing is, though, Kaladin had declared himself the clan leader of the Shido Aiel, but he's immediately rebuked by the Wise Ones, because the Wise Ones had forbade him from entering Ruidian to become a clan leader. So he is not an official clan leader. But when Rand arrives at Alcair and declares to the rest of the Aiel that he is the Karakorn, and even shows his tattoos, Kaladin steps up and says, "No, I'm the real Karakorn. I've been marked." And he lifts up his arms, and he too has his own pair of dragon tattoos, which is confusing to everyone. The people the Wise Ones and Rand know for a fact that Kaladin did not enter Ruidian, and he did not, and those tattoos are a forgery. But not everybody is convinced, aside from Ruarik, who was there when Rand entered Ruidian and came out with the tattoos. Nobody else can validate his claim, can actually validate it. But Rand proves to the rest of the Aiel that he is the real Karakorn, because only clan chiefs who have entered the glass archways will have seen their ancestral memories and the secret history of the Aiel during the Age of Legends. And the thing is that the clan chiefs keep what they've seen in the glass arches a secret, because if the rest of the Aiel realize that they were once like the Tuatha following the way of the Leaf, this could cause a lot of problems. Wait, our badass warrior society was founded on a lie? We used to be a bunch of tree-hugging pacifists?
Ooh.
it would cause an uproar. But Rand reveals the secret history to the Aiel clans, and the clan leaders all have no choice but to acknowledge him as the Karakorn, because only the Karakorn, someone who's passed through the glass archways, would know this. Uh, the rest of the Aiel clans, on the other, unfortunately, erupt into a riot. But Rand manages to quell the riot by summoning a rainstorm into the Aiel Waste, which the Aiel Waste gets little to no rain whatsoever. At that point, Rand already suspected that Asmodean, or at least one of the other Forsaken, was hiding amongst the merchant train, and he actually laid a trap of his own to get this Forsaken to reveal himself. And it was during this chaos that his trap was sprung, and he sensed when Asmodean, the Forsaken that was hiding amongst them in secret, Asmodean had disguised himself as a gleeman, traveling with the merchants. He senses when Asmodean uses his power to open a gateway to allow him to travel back to Ruidian instantaneously. So channelers, while they cannot use their power to fly, to allow themselves to fly, they can use their powers to open gateways, which allow them to travel instantaneously from one point to another. Now, the thing about gateways is that in order for you to travel, you need to be able to know your destination. So you have to know where you're going, right? So you have to know the area that you're traveling to very well, but you also need to know the area that you're leaving from. So you can't just open a gateway and travel instantaneously from one point to another without knowing the place that you're leaving from very well.
Yeah.
So there's two types of traveling. So there's traveling, which is when you open the gateway, you immediately can step through and instantaneously go to the place you're intending to go to. But if you are in an unfamiliar area and you want to travel to some place that you know very well, you can do what is called skimming. And skimming is when you open a gateway, and instead of seeing your destination on the other side, it's just like a black emptiness, right? And when you enter it, you create like a little platform of yourself, and this platform moves through this void until it reaches the area that you wanted to travel to, and then from there you open the gateway, and there you go. So that's how traveling works. So since both Ran and Asmodean were both unfamiliar with the Alcair Dal, Asmodean opened a gateway to Ruidian, but he had to skim. And when Ran sensed the gateway, he was able to reverse engineer he was able to learn how to use the weave and open his own gateway, discovering his own ability to travel, and chases Asmodean down. And when he exits the gateway, he finds himself back in Ruidian. It's there that he chases Asmodean through the city. Asmodean is lobbing lightning bolt and fireballs back at him, trying to slow him down. And he's also pulling buildings down around Rand to keep him from reaching the center courtyard. But Rand is countering Asmodean and shooting fireballs and lightning bolts back at him. They both he was able to slow Asmodean down enough to catch up to him just as he was entering the center courtyard. And he realizes that Asmodean is trying to reach one of the artifacts in the courtyard. And this particular artifact is an access key. So earlier in the episode, I mentioned that there are two incredibly powerful Sa'angreal ever created, and there are these massive statues made entirely of Quendiar. They're so powerful that it's rumored that if you have access to one of them, you would have enough power to challenge the creator himself. Now, that may be whether or not that's an exaggeration, it's hard to tell. But Rand sees Asmodean running straight for one of the access keys to the Choden Call, mainly the 1-foot statue of the male version of the Choden Call, which can only be used by male channelers.
So he runs for it too, and they both grab the access key at the same time. And because of this, they both immediately are able to access the insane amount of power from the Choden call. And since they're both getting equal halves of the power, they're just throwing weaves at each other, having a bit of a tug of war, trying to get the access key from the other. But since they both have equal access to the power from the Choden Call, they're not able to get much. They're not able to get much of an upper hand over the other. But Rand, when he had left Tyr, he had actually taken something from the vault, from the artifact vault in Tyr. Rand had found a little statuette. He calls it the Fat Man statue because it's a statue of a little fat man, right? And it was a male Angreal. So Rand remembers that, wait, I have another Angreal with me. So he starts channeling through that as well as the Choden Call access key, and this gives him enough power to overwhelm Asmodean. And while he's fighting Asmodean, he notices that Asmodean has these strange black threads woven in him. And he realizes this black thread is Asmodean's link to the Dark One. So using his extra power, he severs Asmodean's link to the Dark One, which simultaneously renders Asmodean, cuts off his link from the Dark One, making Asmodean mortal again, because it was this link that gave Asmodean his longevity, but it also destroyed his protection from the taint, because the male Forsaken, they aren't subject to the taint on the male half of the true source like regular real mature.
Yeah, real mature, Devin.
So the male Forsaken aren't affected by the corruption on Sidon because of the Dark One's protection. But when Rand severs Asmodean's link, now Asmodean is susceptible to the corruption, and he will eventually go mad. After he severed his link, he was able to overpower and restrain Asmodean and defeat him. It's at this point their fight actually destabilized the protective wards over Ruidian, so the mist and the barrier that was protecting Ruidian disintegrates, and now the city is open to the rest of the world. And at this point, Lanfear shows up. She's still trying to. She still tries to influence Rand to get him to join her, but he still refuses. And he's like, well, I'm still not going to join you, but you know what? I will take up that one little offer you made and make this bitch right here, points over to the defeated Asmodean. I'm going to have him teach me how to channel properly. And Lanfear's like, haha, I like this game you're playing. So she sweetens the deal a bit, and she places a shield on Asmodean, and a very complex shield, preventing Asmodean from dismantling it on his own. But she leaves it loose enough to where Asmodean can still channel, but just a trickle of the power. Not enough to be a threat to Rand, but enough to teach Rand how to channel properly. So Rand returns to Al-Kerdal, and he finds that the Shido Ideal were driven out by the others, and the rest of the Ideal clans acknowledge him finally as the Karakarn. And that is where the book comes to an end. It's throughout the story. Usually, whenever it concerns Rand, it also jumps back and forth between Rand and Egwene. Egwene had spent this entire time studying with the Wise Ones. So it's not like, even though she's posing as a full-fledged Aes Sedai sister for her own protection, she still endures her training as if she was an actual apprentice to the Wise Ones. Like, they intend to make her a fully fledged Wise One. So, pretty much she feels like she's back at square one, playing, being a novice again, where she has to do all the work, all the hard labor,
answer the beck and call of the wise ones.
Mhm.
Her training is overseen by like three Aiel wise ones. Amos, who was the one that she met in the dream world right off the bat. Bear, who's another dreamwalker. She isn't able to channel. She can't channel, but she is a dreamwalker, and a number of other wise ones who all have the ability to dreamwalk, which was very shocking to both Egwene and Moraine, who uh, only suspected that they could channel, but didn't realize that most of them can dreamwalk. And they are all learning more and more about Aiel culture. Avienda was set by the Wise Ones to teach Rand the Aiel customs, something that she resents because it's not really clear why she has a strong dislike of Rand. And every time Rand questions her on it, she doesn't really give him a straight answer, but she's often telling him that she often tells him that you belong to Elaine. I'm just making sure you don't stray from that path. Because before Rand and Elaine separated from Tyr, Rand and Elaine had actually grown closer together,
Mhm.
spending a lot of private time together.
Mhm.
Nothing too spicy, but still, Avienda, who had befriended Elaine, sees Elaine as something of a near sister, and wants to make sure that Rand doesn't stray from Elaine.
Yeah.
Like, you belong to Rain. I'm gonna make sure you get back to her, and you two end up together.
Yeah.
But Rand later figures out, and spoilers, this doesn't actually happen. Like, he doesn't actually figure this out, but Avienda also has deep feelings for Rand, and that comes to head in the next. Yeah, that all boils over in the next book. So,
Ooh.
something to look for there. Rand actually learns a bit more about his heritage because, as we know by this point, Rand is actually an Aiel himself.
Yeah.
His parents were Aiel, and both of them had fought during the Aiel War 20 years ago. And his mother, who was an Aiel woman who died at the base of the Dragon Mount, which was the place that the dragon had died in his previous life, was also the place that he would be reborn. And, well, when his mother died, she died moments after giving birth to Rand,
At the foot
which
of the
fulfilled the
steps.
first. Yep. So he learns that his father was a former clan chief who died, who is also dead, so he has no living relatives that he knows of. But he also learns that his mother, a woman named Shail, wasn't actually an Aiel herself, but a wetlander who was found wandering through the Aiel wastes, not far from the gap leading from the Westlands through the mountains into the Aiel wastes. When the Aiel had found this woman, she told them that she wanted to join them and become an Aiel, mainly a Maiden of the Spear. And at first, they weren't going to take her in, but they liked her determination, and they agreed to take her in. And for the next 2 years, she trained as a shield maiden, and she became not a shield maiden, a spear maiden, and became a very skilled fighter. But when the Aiel War broke out, when King Damodred cut down the Avendesora that was given to Carian by the Aiel centuries ago as a sign of friendship,
Mhm.
the Aiel understandably got pissed off, and three Aiel clans declared war against Carian and crossed the mountains dividing the Westlands from the Aiel Wastes, and they attacked Carian, and basically all of the Westlands was enveloped in war. Carian fell. Tyr fell because they came to support the Carian from the Aiel onslaught, but they fell. Andor, as well as Altera, Amadicia, Galdean, all these other nations came together to fight against the Aiel, and they lost. And Rand's mother was one of the Spear Maidens that crossed into the Westlands and joined the fight, as well as her lover, who was a clan leader. And during the war, she became pregnant, and usually this means, like, even as a Maiden of the Spear, Maidens of the Spear, they forsake any kind marriage and any kind of like serious relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that doesn't stop them from finding lovers and having friends with benefits, basically.
Yeah.
Maidens of the Spear do take lovers, and if they get pregnant, what happens is after they give birth to their child, the Spear Maiden will surrender the child to a Wise One, and the Wise One will make sure that the child ends up with another non-maiden family.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, and the identity of the child's mother is never revealed. But being the Karakorn, the Wise Ones make an exception and tell Rand who his parents were. And when he unites the Aiel, many of the Aiel societies, because there are different societies, they're kind of like military branches. Different clans have different societies, or like sometimes societies will encompass different clans, and usually your loyalties to your society come first over your clan. So, and the thing about the Maidens of the Spear is that they only have one society, so they're all Faraday's Mai.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's revealed that Rand is the son of a Maiden of the Spear, the Maidens all basically come to like revere Rand in a higher form of respect because they see him as the child that was returned to them.
Mm-hmm.
And these societies all begin vying for Rand's attention. Like, who would uphold Rand's honor, be his honor guard, be the ones who would be his first and last line of defense, things like that. And the Spear Maidens were the ones who were more outspoken and more ready to uphold his honor, and Rand decides to make the Maiden of the Spear, the Maiden Society, as his honor guard. So they become his personal guard. They're the ones that travel with him and are the first ones to go into battle for Rand. So, they really, like, the Spear Maidens become his most loyal soldiers. Which is kind of problematic for Rand because since he comes from since he was raised in a culture that views women as weak and something that as a man he has to protect, it often, like, his cultural beliefs from the Two Rivers often clashes with the warrior society, the warrior culture of the Aiel, especially the Spear Maidens, because the Spear Maidens, like, war is their life. They're ready to jump into the battle at any moment.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. But Rand, like, begins to have issues with this because he doesn't want to put them in danger, right? But at one point, the Spear Maidens make it clear to him that he cannot dishonor them by keeping them out of the fight. And he agrees. I mean, he still tries to keep them out of the fight as much as possible, but when it comes down to it, he doesn't stop them from standing up in his defense. That is pretty much it for Book 4, The Shadow Rising. A lot has happened, as you guys can tell. A lot has happened. Rand is not only the Dragon Reborn, but now officially declared the Aiel's Karakarn. And now after the other Aiel clans to acknowledge him as their chief of chief, he
Mhm.
immediately orders them to. He immediately mobilizes them, like over 100,000 Aiel soldiers,
Damn.
and they begin their march west in to cross the gap in the what's the name of those mountains? I actually let me like don't judge me, people. This is one of those high fantasy stories where there's names for everything.
Yeah.
I can't keep up with all of them. I think it's called the Spine or something like that. Okay, that is not a labeled map. That is not a labeled map. Okay, so dividing the Westlands from the Aiel Waste is a mountain range called the Spine of the World, and at the somewhere like in the middle of the mountain range is a gap that allows people, which is what merchants and Tuathan use to cross into the Aiel Waste. So Rand immediately mobilizes the clans. Like about half of the clans had showed up at Alcair Dal when he declared himself the Karakorn. The rest, there was like about 3 or 4 other clans that hadn't really arrived yet. That was because when Rand called the gathering, he said, "I want them all gathered within a couple weeks." And while the Wise Ones Dreamwalkers said that they can contact them and get them all gathered as soon as possible, that may not all show up at the time he wants. So the ones that didn't show up, they do end up following Rand from afar as he marches west with the rest of the Aiel clans. And they're still unsure whether or not to declare him to like devote themselves to Rand. But in the next book, he does eventually prove himself and get them on his side. But other than that, that is book 4 of the Wheel of Time, The Shadow Rising. And next week, we are going to be reviewing book 5, which is honestly, book 5 was my personal favorite just because of like the outcome, the things that happen. It was just so satisfying because we're now seeing like, Rand he's gaining more power. He had started with Tyr, and by the end of book 5, he'll have 2 more nations under his control.
Damn.
Yep. And we'll talk more about that next week. I'm not going to spoil anymore. I've spoiled a lot. But I will say, towards the conclusion of book 5, there is a little incident involving Lanfear, and I'll say this: the incident in general was pretty bad because it involved a confrontation with Lanfear, but the reason for the confrontation with Lanfear, I thought was hilarious.
Oh yeah, it is.
It's hilarious. But I won't say anything more on that. So you guys are gonna have to tune in next week for book 5 of the Wheel of Time, The Fires of Heaven.
Until then, bye.
Bye.